What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Bryce Gelman here today to discuss. Man, I mean, this is the best feeling you could possibly have as a sports fan, knowing your team just pulled off the impossible and acquired Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets, a team in which the Knicks haven't made a trade with since 1984. They pull off the unexpected, they pull off the improbable, and they acquire Mikal Bridges, one of the most premier two-way wings in the NBA, a guy who has proven to be a solid number 3 on an NBA Finals team, a guy who will be a solid 3 on this potential NBA championship team. And man, I am so psyched. I'm so thrilled by this news. And of course, it comes with a bittersweet nature. After the Knicks made that trade last night, they announced something about Isaiah Hartenstein. We're going to get into that. But first, we're going to focus on the positive here, and that's the fact that the Knicks just did this. The Knicks, Leon Rose, Worldwide Wes, real G's move in silence. These guys don't allow leaks. We had no idea this was coming. I was shocked by this. Even I was sitting here on a live stream yesterday discussing the probability of the Knicks going out and getting Mikal Bridges. I said it was my wet dream. I wasn't too happy with that, but it really was. I really did not think that this could be possible. I didn't think that, first off, the Knicks would give up what was necessary to get Mikal Bridges. The fact that the Nets turned down 4 to 5 unprotected first-round picks in the past, I'm like, what can the Knicks do? What can the Knicks offer that is more than that? The Knicks just gave them the same exact deal that they turned down months ago, and they took the offer. They made them a Godfather deal, an offer you can't refuse. And the Nets, of course, you understand, they weren't trying to make a deal with the Knicks. They didn't want to let the Knicks enjoy the 4 Villanova guys on the same team. They didn't want to let the Knicks complete the Infinity Stone Gauntlet. They didn't want to let them do that, but they had no choice, because when you see a team like that, the Brooklyn Nets, who just, it seems like they're so in their own way. It seems like they really have no idea what they're doing. When you see them make a deal like that, you know that they were blown away with the offer. You know that there was no other team coming in with a higher offer than what the Knicks gave them. And in all of their pettiness towards the Knicks, they sat back and they made the reasonable decision. If you're a Nets fan, and I know I'm getting completely off topic with this, but I just wanted to say this. I know to the 4 of you out there who are Nets fans, probably not even watching this, but I'm going to say this. This is a great opportunity for you to actually do this the right way and rebuild and get talent that could be a number 1 or number 2 on a championship team, especially in next year's draft, which is shaping up to be a lot more deep. I mean, not even just deeper, just with a lot more talent than this draft this year. So good for you. Good for the Brooklyn Nets. They made the decision to move on from Mikal Bridges, because rebuilding around Mikal Bridges as your number 1 option is completely asinine. And they decided that, yes, it was asinine. And, of course, the Knicks made that a little bit easier for them, the decision to make, giving them 4 unprotected first-round picks, a pick swap in another year, and then, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks top 4 protected pick next year. It's a steep, steep price to pay for a guy, like I've been saying, is a number 3 option, the best number 3 option, I think, in the NBA. He'd be a low number 2 option. It's a lot. It really is. But when you consider the fact that he's under contract the next 2 years with an extremely favorable contract at $24 million a year, the fact that he is one of the best, if not the best, two-way 3-and-D wings in the NBA, and he proved you something in Brooklyn in the 27 games that he played in Brooklyn after he was traded from the Phoenix Suns, averaging 26.1 points per game on 47% shooting. I'm going to give him a pass for what we saw this past year with Brooklyn. They were not competing for anything. They were a shell of themselves, just with their roster and just the fact that it seemed like they weren't competing. It's hard to quantify like what that is like for an NBA player. You know, when you're on a team that just isn't competing, you know that team is not playing for anything besides the lottery. And that's what the Nets were at last year. Like, realistically, you look at who the Nets were, and you look at what Mikal Bridges and the ineffectiveness. I mean, he was chucking up shots left and right. But you also look at who else was there to facilitate, who else was there to score. And there's one guy on that roster who could create his own shot besides Mikal Bridges, and that was Cam Thomas, who was objectively one of the best scorers in the NBA. But what else does he offer you? Not much. They were not a deep team. They didn't have much talent, and Mikal Bridges was the number one option. So of course he's going to get the brunt of the negative play from the rest of the team. The fact that everyone was dejected, the coaching change, and this just like did not work out for the Nets, and no one expected it to. So when expectations are low, and then the actual product that you're putting out on the floor is low, and then the Knicks are coming in and destroying, and not even necessarily destroying you, but absolutely, of course, there's 95 times more Knicks fans than there are Nets fans, but when they play at Barclays Center, and they're more Knicks fans, significantly more Knicks fans than there are Nets fans in the building, how dejecting do you think that is for a number one player on the opposing team? Again, a team that is not competing for anything. So Mikal Bridges, you knew he didn't want to be there. I mean, some of the stuff that he said on that podcast appearance, the roommate show with Jalen and Josh Hart a couple of months ago, it was a little telling. Like you don't, if you really like your situation, you're not going out and saying exactly what he said. So there was always an inkling that he wanted to be elsewhere. It wasn't necessarily stated publicly that he wanted to be with the Knicks, but you have to expect, of course, he played with the three guys in Villanova. He's literally a 20-minute, 25-minute train ride away from these guys. They probably hang out in their free time. You know he wants to be on the Knicks. And of course, it comes out after the Knicks make the deal that he was prepared to go public with this trade request to the Knicks. He was going to force the Nets' hand. But before that even happened, the Knicks came in with an offer that they couldn't refuse, and they made the deal. So you bring in Mikal Bridges, and what does this do for your team? Well, apparently, according to Vegas, not much, because they're still tied for second favorite to win the Eastern Conference with Milwaukee at plus 500, which is just like, look at both of those rosters. I understand the Bucks have the the best player on their team in Giannis Antetokounmpo, but you look at a guy like Damian Lillard, whose career is waning. He's not the same player that he used to be. And then you look at the rest of the roster. How the hell are both of those teams plus 500 to win the Eastern Conference? And if you want to say it's because the Knicks still don't have the security of knowing that they're going to have Isaiah Hartenstein back and OG Anunoby be back, then maybe that could be the case. But the fact, based off sheer talent, the Knicks aren't favored over the Milwaukee Bucks to win the Eastern Conference is absolutely asinine. And it just goes to show you the amount of disrespect that the Knicks get from not only the books, but the media, the national media. Like what Skip Bayless said today. I mean, I don't even want to get into it. It's pathetic. There's no need for me to waste my energy and to waste all of your time in discussing it because we know it's all for clicks. Knicks for clicks is a thing. But the Knicks getting Mikal Bridges, there's really no better feeling, guys. Like and if you're just joining now, I'm Bryce Gelman. Thank you all for tuning in here. If you'd like to get in the conversation, just leave a comment below. If you're on YouTube or if you're on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. There really is no better feeling than knowing your team is going to be competing for a championship in the near future. And that's exactly where the Knicks are at right now. The Knicks now have a window, especially if they re-sign Jalen Brunson this offseason to the slightly less lucrative deal that he could be able to sign next summer. That's a 5-year championship window. 5 years. And you give up, understandably, you give up 2025, 2027, 29, and 31 first-round picks. And the only first-round pick that I'm slightly concerned about that conveying into a top 15, top 20 pick is in 2031. That's 7 years away. Who gives a shit? Who cares about a pick in 2031? You know that these next 5 years the Knicks are going to be competing. Those picks will not be high. This isn't the type of deal, and I just can't believe I even have to comment on this. People out there on Twitter equating this deal, that what the Knicks gave up to what the Nets gave up for Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, and Kevin Garnett. Get lost. Is Mikal Bridges 39, 37, 38 years old? Is he at the tail end of his career? Does he have an awful contract attached to him? No, he doesn't. And he's a really solid 27-year-old player. Oh, and he's also under contract for the next 2 years for a very favorable amount of money. So get lost. I don't want to hear that. Just the anti-Knicks stuff that we hear on a constant basis is so frustrating. And I'm just so hypocritical saying I'm not going to lose my energy on this. I'm sitting here sweating because of how much I'm losing my shit over this. Who cares? Who cares? Okay? I don't care. I'm done. We're not talking about it. Mikal Bridges, man. I mean, like, this is the type of guy that just changes everything for you. I understand the steep price to pay for him, but he is one of the most valuable assets in the NBA because he does his role, and he does his role better than anyone else in the league. At a 3-and-D wing, his wingspan is off the charts. Look at his stats. Listen to his stats in 2020, 2021, the year in which the Suns made the finals. In the regular season, 54% from the field, 42.5% from three. I mean, how much more can you ask for a 3-and-D defensive stopper? Like, that is so valuable. It's so inexpendable in this league. And the Knicks have two of these guys. If they re-sign OG Anunoby, they have two guys. So it's just like the trading for a guy like that opens up so many possibilities. And I really think that Brett Bardinsky, what's up, Brett? What's going on, man? We got to keep OG. We're going to get into that in a second. I'm fucking sweating, man. Like, it's just like, if you are dedicating as much energy as I just dedicated to these idiots, these national talking heads, don't do it. Don't do it. Just take my advice. Don't do it, or you're going to sweat your ass off on live stream in front of 31 people. But no, I mean, this trade just opens up so many possibilities for this team, specifically on the defensive end. When you're looking at the backcourt, no worries. You have no worries now with Jalen Brunson as your one guard because you have Mikal Bridges to clean up any of the mess. You've got OG Anunoby backing him up. And I'm talking about OG Anunoby in the context that he's going to resign. He's going to be re-signing with the Knicks in just a short couple of weeks here. It's an inevitable at this point. They're not going to lose. See, it looks like they're going to lose Isaiah Hartenstein, right? Okay, let's get that out of the way. It looks like they're going to lose Isaiah Hartenstein. You think the Knicks, and I've discussed this so many times here on these Twitter live streams, the Knicks are not losing OG Anunoby. When you look at what they gave up to get OG Anunoby, when you look at the two homegrown talents in RJ Barrett and the fan favorite in Emmanuel Quickley, who brought the Knicks so much off the bench. We all remember the 38-point performance against the Celtics at the end of the 2023 season. How could you forget it? The Knicks gave up those two guys to get OG Anunoby, of course, on a technically one-year deal. They knew that they'd have, the rights to sign him to a massive extension. So that had to have been in the cards from the start. What happens with this trade, and there's a negative side to this, of course, as there always is, and Ian Begley just decided to rain down on a parade 10 minutes after the Knicks trade for Mikal Bridges. We're all celebrating all over the streets in New York, and then he sends out that tweet that says, essentially, the Knicks are going to have a hard time re-signing Isaiah Hartenstein. So this, if you missed it, if you don't understand it, to be fair, I didn't really understand it until I read more into it. But this is where the Knicks are currently at. And it can get very complicated this offseason. So unless they tweak the framework, and this is from Forbes, this is from directly quoted from an article from Forbes, unless they tweak the framework of the deal before it becomes final, the Mikal Bridges deal, there will be hard cap to the $178 million first apron since they're taking back more salary in the deal than they're sending out. And of course, this is according to the current reporting. It's not finalized, this deal. So the Knicks could include, Diakite or whoever else to help this deal go through in a favorable way for the Knicks. But here's the wrinkle in all this, and this is where it gets a little concerning. If Bogdanovich is the only contract they include in this deal, the Knicks will not be allowed to have more than $178.7 million of salary on their books at any point between now and June 30th, 2025. So if that happens, the Knicks are essentially screwed out of bringing back Isaiah Hartenstein, which in my opinion, I mean, of course you want OG Anunoby back. Of course, that's the bigger, must-have when you consider how great the Knicks were with OG Anunoby. And when you consider the fact that also the Knicks signed Mitch Robinson as their starting center, they didn't expect Isaiah Hartenstein to kind of explode in the way that he did as the Knicks starting center when Mitchell Robinson went down. You signed Mitch for 4 years, $60 million. You don't make that deal for him to be your backup center. So I think it's telling, especially with the rumors these past couple of weeks with the Knicks potentially shopping Mitchell Robinson. And maybe they include Mitch in this deal. If they included Mitch in this deal and they maybe got a pick or two back, then they'd be able to re-sign Hartenstein, but that's not even a given at this point. So it's a very tricky situation for the Knicks at this point. And I know I mentioned the Knicks potentially adding Diakite or Jericho Sims. They can't. this is the wrinkle in all this. The NBA's new collective bargaining agreement prohibits teams, and this is, of course, I mean, the players really got screwed on this most recent CBA, but it prohibits teams from aggregating multiple players on a minimum contract during the offseason. So that would be Diakite, Sims, and Jeffries. So they couldn't do this in the Bridges deal. If they did, they'd be shit out of luck. They'd be screwed, but they might have to. The issue is I'm literally like dying because of this how worked up I got over Skip Bayless and whoever else. But no, I mean, they can't do it. So they'd have to loop in Mitchell Robinson into this deal, or maybe even, dare I say it, Julius Randle. As the roster currently stands, they have 7 players under contract, I believe, at least for the next 2 years. And those 7 guys, I think, match up extremely well against any team in the NBA, even before you bring back OG Anunoby, even before you potentially bring back Isaiah Hartenstein. That is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. In the year 2024, on Wednesday, June 26th at 2:16 p.m., the Knicks are there. They are right there. They are knocking on the door of what Boston has. The talent, the way that they match up against Boston, with their ability to switch, like Jason Tatum in a 2-man game with let's say Kristaps Porzingis goes to set a screen and Jason Tatum's got OG Anunoby on him, but Mikal Bridges is playing defense on Kristaps Porzingis. You're screwed. You're switched onto Mikal Bridges. The switchability of this defense could be unbelievable. But again, bringing back Isaiah Hartenstein, how awesome would that be? And I've said repeatedly here on these live streams, I want them to run it back. Of course I want them to run it back. This team is just so good at what they did in January, 14-2 in January. 14-2. We cannot forget that. Beating the Nuggets by 40 points, beating the Timberwolves in that stretch. That is what this team is before trading for Mikal Bridges. So tell me again why the Knicks and the Milwaukee Bucks are still both at plus 500 to win the Eastern Conference. What a joke. What a joke. Put some respect on our name. The Knicks are there. They are at the door. They've got one foot in the door in terms of beating Boston. I know Boston's got their 5 guys under contract. They got Derek. Well, they have all these guys. Awesome. Great. The Knicks have a little bit more of the question marks on Hartenstein, on Anunoby, which is, of course, less of a question mark than the Celtics. But I can't understand it. I can't understand the disrespect. Like the Knicks just made an unbelievable deal. They pulled off something that I don't think anyone really expected them to pull off. And they're not getting the respect that they deserve. You can't teach this chemistry. This has never been done in NBA history. When was the last time a team went out and got 4 or 5 players on a national championship team in college? A team, might I add, that played for one of the greatest coaches in college history. It would be the equivalent in 5 or 6 years, a team going out, getting Donovan Clingan and all these guys from the UConn championship teams, and then having success. That's the other part of it. There wasn't guaranteed success when the Knicks went out there and signed Dante DiVincenzo to the mid-level exception. There wasn't success guaranteed when the Knicks traded for Josh Hart, giving up Cam Reddish and a first-round pick. And people were saying at the time that was an overpay. And look how that turned out. This has never happened before in NBA history, and I'm so excited to be able to watch this. And, of course, we have to wait. This is the other part of it. We have to wait 4 months to watch. Come on. You're killing us all with this. We all have to wait 4 months. I'm not buying NBA 2K. One of the worst games in the history of games. I'm not simulating this. I am cutting myself off cold turkey to the possibilities of this organization. And here's where what's next. And I know we discussed it kind of in tandem. And I'm Bryce Gumman, by the way, if you're just joining. Thank you all for tuning in here. And thank you for the comment, Brett, before. But what's next for the Knicks? They have a massively complicated situation to deal with. I don't know how Leon Rose navigates these next few weeks. I think tonight is going to be very telling for the Knicks. The Knicks, of course, they kept their 24th and 25th back-to-back overall picks tonight in the first round. And I'm intrigued because what they do, if they decide to trade up, if they decide to package their 3 picks, they have the 38th pick as well in the second round. If they decide to package those 3 picks to move up, to take a center, I think that tells you all you need to know, that they don't have any confidence they're bringing back Isaiah Hartenstein. Maybe they might trade Mitchell Robinson to move up in the draft and keep those picks and take Ryan Dunn or whoever's going to be down there at 20. He probably won't be there anymore. But whoever's there at 24 or 25. So like it's a tricky situation that Leon Rose now has to navigate, and it's a good situation. Like it's like after you break up with someone, and I'm speaking from experience. It's after you break up with someone, and there are some unfamiliar problems, but they're better problems at the end of the day. Yes, it sucks to lose Isaiah Hartenstein, but it's great to have Mikal Bridges on your team, and then to bring in a guy who's not necessarily as good as Hartenstein, but a Jonas Valanciunas who you know could bring you what you need in terms of rim protection and what you need in terms of actually staying on the court. If Mitchell Robinson was able to play most games this season, this wouldn't be a problem. This wouldn't be a problem whatsoever. But it's Mitchell Robinson who's constantly have the leg injuries, the knee injuries, the foot injuries. It never ends with the guy. When you play as recklessly as he does, and when you're made of glass like Mitch Robinson is, of course you're going to get injured all the time. My dad goes, "What's with tonight? I heard they won't be able to keep these picks." Of course they can keep the picks. It's only $5.5 million combined if they draft both players with their picks. They could make the picks. It's just if they want to make the picks, if they want to trade up. I don't see them trading down anymore. Like, I don't see that being a possibility considering what their situation is. Or maybe they decide to trade down just to save the $5 million. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think that there's any sort of inkling of what the Knicks will do tonight. My money's on they decide to trade up. That they package 24, 25, and 38 together and get, I don't know, maybe the 18th, 19th pick to get a guy in one of those centers at the top of the draft, not the top of the draft, the middle of the draft. That they could slot in there that they know is going to be a good fit for Tom Thibodeau's coaching scheme and has the heart and has the physicality that's necessary for playing for the Knicks right now in this culture and this organization. And again, like, we are at the point of like, what are the problems the Knicks have? What are the issues? Oh, they don't have a backup center. They didn't have the center they expected to be the backup center who ended up becoming the starting center. They still have their starting center. They still have the guy that they paid to be their starting center. I think that's a good problem to have. And of course, I'm of the belief that Isaiah Hartenstein makes them a championship contender. But are they a championship contender without him? I'd have to go as far to say so, especially with the healthy Mitchell Robinson. Think of that defensive starting lineup. Think of that. My dad goes, Edey's going to go in the top 10, the top 15. Some team is going to be stupid enough to draft him that high. I mean, they don't really have another choice considering the fact that this draft is just so the lack of talent in this draft. It's deep, but there isn't much talent, and Edey is going to go in the top 12 or the top 15. I think that's a guarantee. I can't believe that. Can you imagine the Knicks went up and traded for him? But, like, what can the Knicks give up to get to that point? Mitchell Robinson. You're not giving up Mitchell Robinson to get a starting rookie center. You're not starting a rookie. That's not happening. The Knicks trade up to get a center. They're keeping Robinson. They need to just pull together whatever assets they could pull together to get to 17 through 20 to 20. Because realistically, I mean, this is another thing about the NBA that I was talking about with a couple of my friends. Like, the value of draft picks makes no sense. Like thinking in terms of the NFL, like when you are trying to trade up in the NFL, you know exactly what it's going to take to get to that point. In the NBA, it's there's a lot more of a gray area. Like, it's not as black and white as in other sports. You don't necessarily know in 1 year what look back at 2018, what the Hawks had to give up to trade from 5 to 3, and that was to get the Mavs to trade with the Hawks to go from 5 to 3 to get Luka Doncic, a first round pick the next year or whatever it was, a first round pick. I think maybe that set the tone for the rest of these past few drafts and said, like, thinking like, oh shit, they gave up one first round pick to get a generational talent who just carried his team to the NBA Finals. So maybe teams are looking at it differently. But in this draft, when just everyone's been talking, people don't even watch the college basketball. People don't know anything about this draft class. Are all saying, and people who do are saying that there isn't much talent in this draft class. That like. From 1 to 10, well, first off, there's no clear-cut first overall pick. That's what people are discussing. But it's after that. Like, there is talent in this draft. You just need to get lucky in finding it. Like, there are some hidden gems here. And I keep discussing someone I talked about with Chris Persianen of Knicks Film School. If you missed it last week, I did like a 30-minute interview with him. We talked Knicks draft. If you want to know what the Knicks are planning to do, if you want to know what he's thinking, he's very in touch with this kind of stuff. So watch that. if you really want to know. But I'll sum up one of the parts that we discussed, and things have changed in this last week since we did the interview. But Ryan Dunn of Virginia, who is a polished guy, a Tony Bennett type player, has no shot and really no offensive game, but he is long as hell and considered the best defender in the draft. And as a guy who you might be able to play at, like a stretch 4, maybe even at the 5, I really like Ryan Dunn. I think the Knicks could go out and draft him, but now he's, of course, rising up draft boards because of how well he's done in workouts. I don't know if it's worth giving up the Knicks 2 picks to trade up to 20 to get him. Like, you really want to trade 2 first-round picks for 1 and only 4 picks ahead. I don't know. I'm trying to reason with this because I just do not understand where the NBA is at in terms of the type of value they apply to these picks. It makes no sense. It makes 0 sense. So I think, again, and I'm just going to, there was no better time to get a sense of what the Knicks are going to do in this offseason than what they do tonight. So if you're kind of tuned out with all of it, they have the 24th and the 25th pick, who cares? Don't be. Pay attention. Look at this objectively. Look at what the Knicks could possibly do here. Find out who they might pick. Read into draft analysts who are mocking this draft and putting out thousands of articles. Like, read into it, because I still have no idea what they're going to do. But maybe there might be a clearer picture going into tonight, especially after the trade for Mikal Bridges. But I do think that now they just like a major wrinkle in all of this. Like, there is a lot more uncertainty when it comes to the Knicks and their draft plans, because they as I've mentioned, all the stuff that we've discussed here, Hartenstein, Anunoby, there is just so much that the Knicks are going to have to hurdle. Like, there's so many different things here that the Knicks are going to have to deal with in this offseason. And it starts tonight. It starts with these 2 picks that they have. And it starts with what they're going to do about finding either a starting center or a backup center. If they draft, they're keeping Mitchell Robinson. If they go out and draft a center, they're keeping Mitch. And that they think they're not going to be able to re-sign Hartenstein. If they trade Mitch, maybe they think they have a chance at Hartenstein, and maybe, just maybe, Hartenstein will be willing to take the less money, because even if you trade Mitchell Robinson, unless you take, you find a team to take on the majority of his contract, which you're not going to, the max is still $472. It just doesn't cap the Knicks as much if they do sign him. So I don't know. I digress here. I'm trying to reason with you all, and I'm trying to reason with myself, because it's still not clear whatsoever what the Knicks are going to do tonight. We really have no idea. And I'm intrigued. I am. I'm working my way into being intrigued about the NBA draft, especially now, because the Knicks, thanks to the stipend rule, they'll have every other year where we'll be able to care about the draft, because Knicks will actually have a pick. But the Knicks, in the future, more often than not, will not have a first-round draft pick anymore. So enjoy it while it lasts. It's not like the old days where you're excited to see who the Knicks screw up their franchise with the 6th, the 7th, the 8th overall pick. And it's funny the Knicks bring in Mikal Bridges, but they decided to take Kevin Knox over him in 2018 with the 7th overall, or whoever. Knox was taken 9th. Of course, guess who goes 10th? Mikal Bridges. The Knicks could have had him all along. That's another story for another day. This organization is different. Steve Mills is not running the organization anymore. I think that the move they made last night just kind of reiterates exactly how competent this organization is, and how James Dolan is on its high horse right now and has just toned it down in terms of with the front office getting in their face and saying, we need a star. The Knicks just traded all their assets for a star. They made the right move. They didn't force it in trading for a Damian Lillard in the tail end of his career. They traded for a guy in the prime of his career with 2 years of control remaining. The Knicks championship window is the next 2 years. Like objectively speaking, I still think it's 5 years, especially if they re-sign Anunoby, get him for the next 4 years. They're going to have Jalen Brunson for the next 6 years under contract if they re-sign him this offseason. You have your entire core made up already. And of course, you want Hartenstein back. You saw what he gave you, the free roaming defense, the ability to lock down, most opposing centers at the rim. He just could not do any sort of solid job against Joel Embiid. A 60-70% Joel Embiid, I think, was a little, I don't know. With the Knicks' ability to switch now, I think Hartenstein would become just like an otherworldly type rim protector, because good luck getting past the perimeter. Like, Jalen Brunson's going to be on an island in the corner by himself, guarding the worst player on the opposing team. Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Julius Randle are going to be doing the real work on the perimeter. Of course, if you're playing a power forward who tends to live inside the paint, that's where Julius Randle thrives anyway. He's physical. He's big. He could thrive down there. And then you've got the free roamer Isaiah Hartenstein. Man, I mean, just like, as much as it looks unlikely now, like, I think any Knicks fan could dream. And I'm not going to let the idea of losing Isaiah Hartenstein bring me down from this high, as all of you shouldn't as well, because this is something that, you know, there some people out there who were fans of the Knicks in 1970, 71, and in 72, 73, when it seemed like Red Holtzman and the Knicks were going to compete every single year. When was the last time we felt this way? Even in the 90s, you were still facing Michael Jordan. And I guess that the Celtics are the 90, you know, the 2020s version of the 90s Bulls for the Knicks. And we're going to see some great battles between them over these next few years. It's just exciting. Very exciting. And of course, Boston has the talent. They won the championship in dominating fashion, but who do they realistically face? Were any of those teams even close in comparison to what the Knicks have right now, even without Hartenstein, even without Anunoby? And you got to expect Anunoby to come back. Again, as I said, it's going to happen. Anunoby is inevitably coming back to the Knicks unless some team comes in. If the Sixers want to offer him 40+, the Knicks could still match that. And if it's close, he's going to take the Knicks off unless he leaves CAA, unless he abandons Sam Rose, Leon's son, and it becomes this whole issue. Do you really think OG Anunoby would do that? Have you seen any one of his post-game interviews? Did you see what he did in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Pacers, playing in a game in which he should not have played in which he was 20 or 30%? He was as effective as I would have been out there. That's not even a joke. I mean, he was terrible. I mean, objectively running up and down the court and running. That's it, you know, to put it nicely, he was not running. But there is just no circumstance in which I could be brought down from this. And that's the last thing I'll say here today. Like, there is just nothing that should bring you down from this either. Enjoy it. Because it's always, like, speaking like of like, you know, I have a lot of Cowboys, I have a few Cowboys fan friends, and then of course Jets fans friends. And like last year, how exciting was it to have Aaron Rodgers in your organization? How exciting was it to have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all? Oh, and then he tears his Achilles. Like, anything go bad. Like enjoy it while you can. I knock on wood. If anything similar to that happens to the Knicks, we're screwed. We're cursed. But the Knicks have done everything they possibly can to put them in a perfect position to compete with Boston. This is the trade you needed to make. The Knicks decided not to wait for an opposing star to ask out. They didn't want to wait for a Devin Booker. They didn't want to wait for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think things are going to be blown up in Milwaukee in the next 2 to 3 years. They weren't going to wait for Joel Embiid to ask out. They got a guy who wanted to ask out, who wanted to be in the Knicks. And they went out and got that guy. Oh, and it happens to be that guy played 4 seasons with the guys in Villanova. And they won 2 national championships, 2 in 3 years. So there you go. There is just, I mean, it's just so exciting. It really is. And hopefully we will have more clarity about what the Knicks' plans are in terms of Isaiah Hartenstein, in terms of their center depth after the draft tonight. I'm gonna be tuning in, and we're gonna have to wait a long time I'm sure they're gonna draw it out even more now, considering the fact that the NBA made it a 2-night event. Who cares about the second? Who cares about the second night? I don't know what they're trying to do with this. I guess, you know, obviously to sell more ads. Good for them. Good for Adam Silver, raking in more money. But yeah, I mean, there was just who cares, like, realistically. But I'm definitely gonna be tuning in, as should all of you. So thank you all for tuning in today. It is a great day to be a Knicks fan. I woke up happier than I've been in a long time when it comes to my sports fandom. And I'm sure a lot of you out there feel the exact same way. So let's enjoy it. I'll be talking to you all later this week to kind of recap the draft, probably something Friday. Got a guest for you next week. Hard Knocks, Giants, offseason Hard Knocks starts up next week. Stay tuned with One Giant Step. I'll be back with Sean Morash of WFAN covering each episode of Hard Knocks starting next week, and then, of course, lead you all into training camp and the NFL season. So stay tuned for all of that. But right now, it's Knicks time. And let's get this all out of the way. Let's enjoy our summer. Let's bring back OG Anunoby and somehow find a way to bring back Isaiah Hartenstein. But I don't know. Thank you guys all again. I'm Bryce Gelman. I'll speak to you all later this week.